Welcome to Blue at Last Trade Show Marketing Podcast.
Welcome back to the podcast, guys. And today we're talking about 15 tactics to scale your trade show success and increase positive ROI. Before we jump into the 15 tactics, and these are things that you may not have thought about, or if you thought about, didn't really understand how to implement. We're going to take you through that today so that you have a good idea how you can really maximize your trade show. You know, there's so many statistics of how a lot of B2B businesses realize that trade shows are important, but they also realize they're not sure if they're making anything positive or if it's really positively affecting their sales and if they've got good ROI on it. So 15 tactics. Before we jump into those 15 tactics, let's talk a little bit about just trade show as in general and your pre-show planning. Because if you don't plan beforehand, these 15 tactics won't matter. You can't plan the day before the show or the week before the show and make it nearly as successful as you can if you do some pre-show planning. So the first thing is your booth needs to be interactive. You need to have an interactive experience so that you can create some direct engagement and get quality leads from it. Now, that interactive experience, and we'll talk about through some of these tactics, can be games, giveaways, things like that. They can be themed to the overall show's theme. They can be themed to your business, something consistent with your brand. But make sure you're considering how you can be interactive. And interactive is more than, oh, I'm going to be standing in front of my booth, my display's in the back, and I have a flyer. You need to do something to engage people, because as you engage them, you start building rapport. You start building a little bit of a relationship before you get into the sales pitch, or before you decide one way or the other if they're a good fit or not. You don't want to just try to grab every business card of everybody that walks by and hope that maybe they're a lead. Let's find out at the show. That's the whole point of the time of being at the show, is to generate good quality leads. So let's do that with some interactivity and some engagement. And finally, before we talk about the 15 tactics, you want to get into brand visibility and paying attention to what your competitors look like. If you have never been to the show, you might want to consider just attending the show this year and exhibiting next year, or reach out to the show organizers and say, can you really tell me who attends here? Can you tell me more about who's exhibiting? Do you have any pictures so I can see the other booths? You don't want to go over the top, but you also don't want to be underwhelming when it comes to the show, because you didn't really know that everybody spends a lot more on their booth, and they have all kinds of games, and they have these giveaways, and they have models and all this crazy stuff. You know, the OTC conference in Houston has a wide variety of this. We have booths that are just basic, and here's your backdrop, and I have a flyer, all the way to craziness with massive games and $1 million booths and everything else. Get an idea of what you're going to so that you know how you can increase your brand visibility for your budget. You don't have to overspend just because everyone else is, but at least you know what you're going up against. So find creative ways to compete with that and make sure you're visible. All right, a couple of quick things on pre-show planning before we get into the tactics. One, make sure you're choosing the right show. Make sure that this is a good fit for you. If you're reaching out to the organizers and asking those questions, you're going to know if this is a good show or not. And you probably already attended this show, so you already know. But if it's a new show, make sure it's a good show so that it's worth your time and your money. Design that engaging booth. Make sure people can engage with you and come into the booth, have a reason to come see you. And finally, train your staff. One problem that we see is, you know, as a marketing partner, we'll work with, say, the executive team or a marketing department. We design the booth, create the giveaways, design the games, do the landing pages, all of that. And then the sales staff that we've had no interaction with is dropped into the booth and said, here, go get some leads for us. Sometimes it's the marketing team, but often it's not. It's your business development team, because that's their role. They want to go get leads. So they go to the trade show. Make sure you're training your staff on how the booth is supposed to work, how games or interactivity is supposed to work, how the demos should flow. Give them talking points, but make sure you're training your staff properly for the trade show. All right, enough talk about beforehand. Let's talk about the 15 tactics. So let's start with number one, and we've already covered this a little bit. Interactive exhibits and demos. I'm suggesting things like VR, AR, the augmented reality, 3D displays, gamification, all kinds of things that are going to be interactive. You know, when I mentioned OTC, so oil and gas industry, for instance, it's really hard to say, hey, we go get oil out of the ground and this is how we do it better. But there's a lot of 3D modeling that can explain that and show that and help illustrate how this particular company's product or service will help that client better, help that prospect better. You can use 3D modeling. You can do demos of your product. Just make it interesting, make it engaging and interactive. Just make it something unique. So when people say, oh, you can tell me about your product, let me show you about my product. And you can show them a demo, or you can show them in some kind of way. You can show about your service in some kind of way, but make it interactive. Think about number 2, creative giveaways. A lot of times we see clients will say, let me just get some pens and some pads and maybe some coffee mugs because they're cheap and they're easy and most people will use them. Unfortunately, those giveaways go in the bag. If they make it home, they're dumped out on the counter for the kids, and the kids come and take what they want, and then everything else kind of goes into the trash because they've got a lot of the same old things. They have tons of pens at their office already. If they don't, they call the office manager, they get pens ordered. They're not coming to the trade show to restock their pens. Some people do, but they're really not using it for that respect. It's okay to have those giveaways because there are the drive-by people that run by, grab something off your table and keep moving. They don't want to talk to you. They wait when you're not looking and grab something and go. I've seen people literally, they have their bag. The whole purpose of being at a trade show is to drop the stuff in the bag to take home with them. You don't want to deal with those people. Let's throw out a few little giveaways. Pens and things like that are cheap. But let's be creative. If you're gamifying something, then you've got prizes. If you're doing, some kind of interactive demo, when they do that, say, hey, I've got something for you. As soon as I get done with the demo, I've got a prize for you. I got a present for you. Make it something unique and interesting. You could also consider eco-friendly things. Where a lot of us are talking about sustainability now. You may want to consider that with your trade show giveaways as well. You don't want to say, hey, our brand is sustainable, but then you're, really giving away a lot of extra trash and things like that. And people go, no, look, their giveaways aren't sustainable. Keep that brand going across everything, but be creative. All right. Number 3, still sticking with the interactivity here, but number 3 is engaging competitions and activities. There's really nothing wrong with creating games and contests. I know a lot of people say, this is a B2B conference. Nobody wants to come and have fun and play games. I disagree with you. I think they do want to play games. I think they do want to have fun. Why did they leave the office and go to the trade show anyway? They want to break from the mundane day-to-day. And they're going to hundreds, maybe thousands of booths. And when they come by your booth, they don't want to be told and sold and say why they need to take your flyer and how you're going to be the next best thing since sliced bread. At least engage them with the game before we tell them why you're the next best thing since sliced bread. But let's engage them and give them something interesting. If you do some games where there's some scoring, you can even have a leaderboard. People will talk about that. And if you've ever been to a show that has these type of engagements and interactivity, you'll see people talk about it. And they come back to your booth. They want to come back and say, hey, am I still at the top of the leaderboard? They may not be a good fit, but if they're a good lead, they keep coming back and building more rapport with you. And you get more opportunity to build that relationship and do more with them as a good lead from this show. Number 4 is social media integration. And this one's a big one because it really spans across a lot of things. Generally speaking, B2B companies don't do a really good job with social media interaction. If you post a month, you go, oh yeah, we post on LinkedIn. We don't need to post on anything else. That's not true, but they really already are doing a poor job of it. And then when you talk about a trade show, they really drop the ball on it. In order to not drop the ball and do a great job with social media integration, you should already have a presence going and engagement. But long before the show, during the show, and after the show, use your social media channels. You're going to be connected with people that probably should be at the show, but they didn't go this year, or they just don't spend the money to go attend trade shows. You can use your booth and do some live streams. If you've got a product demo, you can literally do the product demo on a live stream on social media, and everyone that's connected on your channel that didn't come by your booth, maybe they were at the show and just didn't come by, or maybe they're not at the show, they now see your product demo. And you can promote that. You can boost those live streams. You can repurpose the videos. You can do a lot of things with social media before, during, and after. They're going to give you so much traction. But often this is the one that people go, well, we're going to post a picture of us on social media. That's not enough. Let's go ahead and use it to the fullest extent. And then next is your targeted networking. So you need to do some pre-event research. That's why that pre-show planning is important. We have a checklist, and most of the checklist is all these things that you're going to do before the show. And that's going to help lead to these things of like targeted networking. while you're engaging at the show, and this is not just at the booth, you've got to really focus on who's going to be where. Maybe there's a speaker that would be a good fit as a prospect or maybe as a partner. Make sure you plan to reach them in some kind of way. You're going to be at their segment. You're going to catch them after the show. Maybe you're inviting specific targets to a personalized happy hour. It doesn't have to be something that the show's doing. If it's at a hotel, you can actually go get one of their meeting rooms and throw your own happy hour and invite only the people that you want to bring. If you've already gone through your pre-show attendee list and you've come through that and go, all right, here's my 250 that are supposed to be here. I want them to come. Send them a personalized invite to your own personal happy hour. Things like that will allow you to do some targeted networking. Let's talk about number 6, exclusive deals and promotions. So look, I'm suggesting that you offer special deals, special promotions, exclusive things to people that are going to the trade show. If it's the same thing that you offer, let's say you have a special discount, you remove your setup cost or something like that if they do an annual agreement or something of that nature, but you do it for everybody, then it's not really an exclusive special deal. But consider offering a special deal to people at the trade show. You can market it beforehand. Use that to get some traction before you go to the show. Market it during the show. As we talked about social media on our tactic number 4, use a live stream to talk about those deals and specials or maybe special products. But do some things special and unique for the trade show. So it gives you something to talk about. It gives you something to promote instead of just saying, hey, here we are. We're at the trade show. And then that's it. Like, talk about something. Hopefully you have an engaging booth. As you do it, then you can talk to you a little bit about, say, hey, do you know about so-and-so? By the way, we've got a special deal about it. Can I walk you through it a little bit? Yes, because you have a special deal that's only available at the show, you can do follow-up promotions, emails, social media, etc. That apply to this. So consider an exclusive deal or promotion. Next, number 7, utilizing technology. And I think obviously a lot of times in B2B settings, technology is part of your product or service. So you're already going to be considering technology. But I feel like a lot of times at trade shows, companies they kind of forget about using technology to really engage the traffic and attendees. And it kind of dropped the ball a little bit. The big buzzwords right now are VR and AR, people put on headsets to see things, but it is a really cool way to be able to say, let's say you manufacture a very large facility, for instance. How are they going to see that at a trade show? Pictures don't usually do justice, but you could put that into a 3D, a VR type situation where somebody could actually go explore it, with a VR headset. Augmented reality, that may not be possible with large scale things, but there's a lot of ways to utilize that to either engage, and draw people in, or to help show your product or service. And also just consider it as a way to make it an immersive experience. All right. Number 8, educational workshops or seminars. So obviously a lot of these shows have opportunities for you to speak. A lot of them, they're paid opportunities. A lot of them, they do a speaker call and say, hey, can you submit what you would be speaking about? Take advantage of these. I know most people say, I'm really scared to speak in front of people. Might be something you need to work on, take Toastmasters, things like that, but be willing to get in front of people because it really sets you up as a thought leader and an industry expert versus just somebody trying to sell some goods and services that they don't really know one way or the other. When you can be up there as one of the speakers for the conferences, they go, all right, the conference has brought them in. They must be an expert. Oh, their product does this. That's led by an expert. So there are ways that speaking opportunity can really give you a lot more traction for the trade show. Anytime we exhibit at a trade show, we look for speaking opportunities, and we recommend the same thing for all of our clients. Find a way to speak. Find someone in your company that's good at doing presentations and can speak. Not just that can read off of a PowerPoint, but somebody that can be engaging as a speaker. It doesn't matter who it is because they're going to represent your company, and that sets you guys up as a leader and an expert in your industry. One other thing about these workshops and things, we talked about like ways to engage in targeted networking in part 1. It's how we finished up. You could do the same thing with seminars and educational opportunities. You don't have to go and pay sometimes the thousands of dollars to do a seminar or workshop. You could do an after hours workshop or an after hours seminar. You could just do one if you have a targeted group for big shows like say OTC in Houston, some like the plastic shows, things like that. There are a lot of them that are very, very large. There's a lot going on. there's so many attendees there that you could host your own workshop, just contact the hotel or maybe a restaurant close by, provide a lunch. Hey, there's going to be a lunch break. Instead of them wanting to go maybe to a certain speaker, you can actually host your own lunch break and do a quick seminar, especially if you've narrowed down that pre-show attendee list and you know who you're targeting. Target them beforehand, pre-show, to come see you. Send them invites, get RSVPs, see how many people are going to be there. But you can host your own independent place. It's kind of tricky. So I will say, definitely handle this delicately, because you don't want to make enemies of the show because you're doing things outside of their show. But at the same time, sometimes there's a good opportunity for you to host some educational opportunities on your own way, on your own, in kind of a private invitational only type situation. All right. Number 9 is high quality visuals and branding. I can't stress enough the importance of using high quality visuals, a cohesive branding across everything. If you have flyers that are 5 years old, but you just redesigned your backdrop, they probably don't look the same. They're probably not consistent. And without the consistency, people don't remember your brand. We kind of sometimes take that for granted. Like, well, I gave them a flyer. They should know who I am. But they're seeing hundreds of booths. They're going to forget who you are. They're going to forget who they just got a flyer from. And yeah, they can look at the flyer and say the company name, but they're not going to remember you if it's not engaging and you didn't reinforce your brand with your backdrop, maybe your engaging activities, the giveaways, the demos, and then there's a flyer or something that they've taken with them or a QR code that they've scanned. They're not going to remember all of it if not, that's not all consistent. So I highly recommend using high quality visuals and then consistent branding pieces to tie all that together. All right. Number 10, effective lead capture strategies. And this is going to be a big one. This is how we're going to end our part 2 real quick. You really need a mix of traditional and digital lead capture opportunities. We highly recommend that you go in with some type of digital capture, what we call a little bit of a lead magnet. That might be a calculator, that might be a guide, that might be some case studies, that could be a whole formal piece that really explains when to use certain different products or services, but something of value, and it needs to be of value, something of value that trade show attendees can come by, scan a QR code, put in a little bit of information, get the value, but you get the lead. There's nothing wrong with doing the business card scanners. I highly recommend that if it's offered. Getting a physical business card, I've always liked to get a business card, write notes, and save it, especially when I know that it's a really good hot lead that pretty much goes in my pocket. That one is, I may follow with them tonight in between the today and tomorrow of the show. But outside of that, start considering some digital ways that you can capture leads that then can easily be fed into your CRM. If you're seeing thousands of people that come by your booth, that's a lot of people to remember. That's a lot of business cards to grab. But if they are engaging with you in some of your digital channels, QR codes, they may scan QR codes while you're not even there. You didn't even realize they scanned it. You're still capturing leads. To get a business card from somebody, they have to stop, engage with you, and be willing to pull out a business card. A lot of people aren't really. They really want to engage with you. So I recommend utilizing both your traditional methods that we've used for years to collect leads at a trade show, but consider your digital strategies like a lead magnet of some type that will provide value, but you get the lead in return. Right now, number 11, personalized follow-up. Those as we were talking about in part 2, seeing, those hot leads that maybe you wrote on the business card and put those in your pocket, you're obviously going to give them personalized follow-up. But a lot of people stop there and everything is just, hey, saw you at a trade show, hope to do business with you. Very generic emails that go out, and after 1 or 2 emails, that's it. Nobody responded. Next trade show, we didn't really get a whole lot from that trade show. There's so much more you can do with personalized follow-up. When you have that lead magnet that we talked about, when you're using the digital channels, you can segment a little bit. You can ask a couple of questions, or maybe it was a specific part of your resource and value lead magnet that you provided that tells you something that they're interested in, maybe over another. If you have several product displays or demos, for instance, well, which one did they engage with? Find a way to segment your list there and personalize the follow-up based on interaction that you had, either, all the way down to one-to-one personalization, or at least within the segments where you can do some custom and unique, connections and relationship building based on what how they engaged you. But the biggest problem with personalized follow-up is no one has a follow-up system in place. They have no automation for the generic follow-ups that might need to go out just because you've got a bunch of business cards and you didn't really talk to them. They have no method or system to put in after the show. You've already got planned. I know we were going to promote these 3 product lines, and if somebody was interested in this one, we have these 5 emails to go, and in this one we have these 7 emails, and we've got this demo to go on this product. Plan those things beforehand, but most of the time businesses don't have a system for that in place. Get that in place before the show and then plan for personalized follow-up. All right, number 12. And this one's a unique one that a lot of people do not think about. Leveraging industry influencers. So this is not necessarily, doesn't have to be somebody in your company, but there are ways that you, as we talked about, maybe doing some seminars and educational opportunities, or maybe even happy hours. If you have partners within the industry, maybe they're government officials, maybe it's somebody at a university, for instance, that puts out a lot of research and papers and things of that nature, someone that you have a relationship with. Talk with them about partnering with them on the show. Say, hey, I'd love for you to come by and be at our booth for, say, 2 hours on the Saturday, the day, from 2 to 4. Can you be there? We're going to promote that you're there. We want people to come by and be able just to pick your brain a little bit. Can you do that? Maybe they want a fee for that, or they want to share in maybe the leads. They're willing to kind of cross promote with you and say, all right, well, all the leads you get, can you forward those to me? But I'll be there for these several hours of the show to be the expert. Maybe you bring in that expert and co-speak with them. That's a possibility. If you can do a seminar, maybe you have them come in, or even, you don't even have to have them there. Maybe you pull in a couple of videos from them, do a pre-recording, but utilize industry leaders and leverage the influencers that you have relationships with to build your credibility at the show. I mean, the thing is, you're going to have competitors at this show. If you go to the right show, there's going to be competitors there. What sets you apart? Do something different. Do something interesting. And don't always just rely on yourself and your brand to be the different and interesting. Think about industry leaders that might be a good fit and you have a relationship with that can really help you carry your message, but show that you're an industry leader. Show that you have partners that really help build the expertise of your company. Number 13, live demonstrations. We've talked about engagement, so I don't want to beat a dead horse on this one, but definitely live demonstrations, showcasing your products, but also finding ways to showcase your service. And we talked about maybe games and things like that can relate to a service, but even as a service, find creative ways to kind of demonstrate how that works. Maybe it's just a video that walks people through it, but it is a bit of a live demonstration. Say, hey, let me show you this video we've put together, and it'll show you what we do. People like to watch video instead of sitting there having to engage with you face to face, especially if they haven't built any kind of rapport with you. So give them an opportunity to be in your booth. Say, hey, let me show you a video. Okay, I'll watch your video. They watch the video. Now they're going to have questions that you can start answering, or questions that you can start firing away. If they watch the video and they're not engaged, it might be time for them to leave your booth, and that's okay. You'll see that. But if they're watching it, for instance, they're really engaged and maybe even taking some notes or something, then that you need to continue to engage. This is probably a hot prospect. But use live demonstrations definitely for products if possible, but also consider it for your services as well. Number 14 is post-event analysis and some feedback. Most companies do not do anything after the trade show when it comes to really analyzing how it worked or not. When it comes time for the show next year, they go, hey, well, does anybody know what we did last year? Like, yeah, it was a great show. Was it? Do we have any kind of data to prove that? Do we have any analysis, a post-show, even just a quick huddle on how it worked? You need to evaluate the success at the show, after the show, long term. Where did we get these leads from? If you've got a CRM that's tracking where your sources are, you might be able to go in and say, hey, from these 4 trade shows, we've got X number of leads and X number of sales that came from those trade shows. That's going to give you an idea if it's worth it to keep spending the money. But most people forget to do that post-show analysis. They forget to come back and analyze how successful it was and look for ways to continuously improve what they were doing. You go in and say, hey, we built a game to get people into the booth. No one wanted to play the game. All right. It may not be a good fit for that audience. It may not be a good fit, period. Definitely, even though you may have tried to test it beforehand, you won't know till after you do the show. Or you may come out and go, we've never had this many people come to our booth, and they kept coming back. And we got so many leads, and we have so many new prospects that we didn't even know existed in our industry because we did that game. And it really, really worked. analyze that and then take advantage of it and continuously improve of either keep that going, consider maybe a new game so the attendees don't get tired of it the next year, but just find ways to continue to improve. But the only way you'll do that is if you sit down and do a post-event analysis and provide some feedback to the marketing team that's doing it, get feedback to the sales team about how things worked with them, get their feedback. Everybody starts communicating and talking because you actually do sit down and do a post-show analysis. All right, number 15, but don't leave yet. I've got 3 takeaways you can put into action right now. All right, number 15, sustainability and eco-friendly practices. Consider using this. Most companies, especially as we talk about energy business, oil and gas, manufacturing, a lot of companies are even specifying and requiring sustainable manufacturing processes. They're being mandated by governments. They're mandating themselves, trying to get ahead of the curve. But sustainability is a big deal. So consider including that in your materials, your giveaways, all of those kind of things. Consider the eco-friendly practice. I've talked about QR codes. One reason why I do like that digital lead and that digital lead magnet element is because instead of having to hand out a lot of flyers, you just have QR codes everywhere. Or you can hand out smaller pieces that are a little bit less impactful. Maybe it's a postcard instead of a full flyer or a full big brochure. Things that are more environmentally friendly, eco-friendly, and really help establish your brand and sustainability. If this is not something that you need to attach to, then you don't need to worry about that. And that's okay. You don't have to be. But a lot of our industries that we work with say, I really need to drive home the sustainability of, say, our manufacturing process. We want to make sure we keep that brand all the way everywhere that people are touching our brand and all of our touch points. So consider sustainability, eco-friendly practices, eco-friendly giveaways, how you present yourself, the things that you do there at the show. Consider all of those things. All right, this has been the 15 tactics to help elevate your trade show success. But I want you to take 3 key takeaways. I want you to do these things right now. 1, innovate your booth experience. Look at your booth. Open up the booth and put it together in your office or your warehouse or something. Put it together and look at it. Look at it from an attendee's perspective. How can we engage this a little bit more? How can we make it more interactive? Plan exhibits, demos, games, contests, giveaways, whatever else it is. Kind of start that brainstorming long before the show comes back. Consider what is it that we can do to engage a little bit more. Next, consider amplifying your engagement with social media. Start thinking about it now. You need pre-show, during show, and post-show plans. Make a plan. You don't have to go all out and go crazy and be like, all right, we're going to spend all this money and do all this stuff on social media. You don't have to start there, but at least have a plan for what you're going to do beforehand, during, and after so that it all works with your newly interactive booth, maybe your games, your giveaways, all of that happens across social media channels. Use boosted posts if you need to let people know about it, or engage with, if you have a very engaged audience, make sure you're engaging with them and using social media tactics, strategies, etc., to elevate your trade show. And last, plan an evaluation session and analysis after the show. Do this a couple of times. Don't just do it once. Do it pretty quick after the show while it's still fresh and get a lot of the feedback, but then also do it again, say 3 months later, and then consider it 9 months later. I know there's a big window, but in a lot of B2B settings, we're immediately going to have feedback. How many leads do we get? 3 months later, you're going to get some initial sales and maybe some open orders. 9 months later, a lot of times the cycle's that long, you won't really know the effectiveness until you get all the way down to that 9 months. So just plan another analysis session after the fact. Try to gather as much data along the way so that you have something to analyze and something to look at when you come back to it. But make sure you consider sitting down and evaluating the success of your trade show. These have been the 15 tactics and our 3 key takeaways to get you started with being more successful. We want you to be more successful at your trade show. We want you to have positive ROI, and that's why we give this kind of information to you. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. Hope to see you on the next one.
Welcome to Blue at Last Trade Show Marketing Podcast.